Hello everyone, I'm back again with the series Security Studies. Today I'll be focusing on Chapter 2, Realisms by Colin Ellman and Michael A. Jensen. The realist tradition has exercised enormous influence over the field of international relations, political science, and security studies. Even the harshest critics of realist theories would acknowledge that it bases itself on power, fear, and anarchy that gives central explanation to armed conflict and war. The key essential terms in this chapter are states, power, anarchic international system, self-help, and survival. The realist theorists take a pessimistic view on international politics and international relations. There are 6 variants of realism in this chapter: classical realism, neoclassical realism, rise and fall realism, neorealism, offensive structural realism, and defensive structural realism. Although realism dates back to the 5th BC, but in this chapter it begins with the 20th century when E.H. Carr wrote his book, The 20 Years Crisis. There are other realists that are mentioned in this book like Niebuhr, White, Morgenthau, who wrote Politics Among Nations, Cannon, and Butterfield. According to classical realism, because the desire for more power is rooted in the flawed nature of humanity, states are continuously engaged in a struggle to increase their capabilities. Classical realism, therefore, explains conflict with reference to human failings. Wars are explained, for example, by particularly aggressive statesmen or by domestic political system that gives greedy parochial groups the opportunity to pursue self-serving expansionist foreign policies. So for classical realists, international politics can be characterized as evil. Bad things happen because the people making foreign policy are sometimes bad. The second variant of realism is neorealism, which became famous by a theory called Theory of International Politics given by Kenneth Waltz in 1979 that replaced Morgenthau's Politics Among Nations as the standard bearer for realists. So according to Kenneth Waltz, systems are composed of a structure and their interacting units. He states that political structures are best conceptualized as having 3 elements. Number 1, an ordering principle that could be anarchic or hierarchical in nature. Number 2, the character of the units that could be functionally alike or different. And number 3, the distribution of capabilities. So what exactly is the difference between classical realism and neorealism? Number 1, contrary to classical realism, neorealism excludes the internal makeup of different states when thinking about their foreign policy preferences. Number 2, unlike classical realism, Walt's theory is not based on the leader's motivation and state characteristics. The third variant that is given in this chapter of realism is defensive structural realism. Now, like neorealism, defensive structural realism also suggests that states seek security in an anarchic international system. The main threat to their well-being comes from other states, which means if they perceive threat, they'll be defensive in nature. Now, one of the contours of this variant is balance of threat theory, which was actually given by Stephen Morse. The balance of threat suggests that states form alliances to prevent stronger powers from dominating them and to protect themselves from states or coalitions whose superior resources pose a threat to national independence, geographic proximity, offensive power, and aggressive intentions affect the threat level. The fourth variant of realism in this chapter is offensive structural realism. This contour or variant is famous because of John Mearsheimer, who argued that states face an uncertain international environment in which any state might use its power to harm another. Mearsheimer's theory makes 5 assumptions. Number 1, the international system is anarchic. 2, great powers inherently possess some offensive military capability and accordingly can damage each other. 3, states can never be certain about their state's intentions. 4, survival is the primary goal of great powers. 5, and great powers are rational actors. Now the fifth might seem a little bit surprising, but rise and fall realism is termed as the fifth variant in this chapter. Rise and fall realism emerged as a powerful alternative to the balance of power theories that dominated international relations scholarships during the 1950s. This contour or variant is famous because of Organski, who claimed that hegemony is the foundation for peace, while balance is often associated with war, has since become a central theme of rise and fall realism. Rise and fall realism depicts the course of human history or some significant portion of it as the successive rise and fall of great powers. The last variant of realism in this chapter is neoclassical realism. Now, what exactly is it? Neoclassical realism suggests that what states do depends in large part on influences located at the domestic level of analysis. Neoclassical realism employs a transmission belt approach to foreign policy, which illustrates how systemic pressures are filtered through variables at the unit level to produce specific foreign policy decisions. That's all, folks. Realism is a bit tricky, but it is multifaceted, dynamic, and perhaps the most dominant school of thought in international relations. I'll be coming with some more videos next week. Stay tuned. Please like my video, subscribe my channel, and show some love to the channel because it's not just my channel. It's a channel for the students of Pakistan and world abroad. Thank you.